Hello everyone! Welcome to Untold History, the channel where we explore the most surprising and lesser-known events that have shaped world history. Today we travel to the year 410 when the Eternal City Rome fell to a group of foreign invaders, the Visigoths. This event, known as the Sack of Rome, was a devastating blow to the Western Roman Empire and marked one of the most symbolic moments of its decline. Although it was not the first time Rome had been besieged, the sack of 410 was particularly shocking because of the symbolic power the city had as the heart of the Roman world. To understand how this historical event happened, we must first take a look at the context of the Roman Empire at the beginning of the 5th century. By this time, the empire was already in decline, beset by internal problems and external pressures. Since the 3rd century, the Western Roman Empire had faced a series of political, economic, and military crises that weakened its control over vast territories. The empire's borders had become vulnerable to incursions by various Germanic tribes, including the Visigoths. The Visigoths, a branch of the Gothic people, had been moving westward from Eastern Europe, pushed by the invasion of the Huns. In 376, the Visigoths, led by their king Fritigern, sought refuge within the Roman Empire, settling south of the Danube in what is now Bulgaria. However, the relationship between the Visigoths and the Romans soon became strained due to Roman mismanagement, leading to a series of engagements, most notably the Battle of Adrianople in 378, where the Roman army was defeated and Emperor Valens was killed. Although Rome managed to reach a temporary peace with the Visigoths, tensions never completely disappeared. By the year 410, the Visigoths were led by one of the greatest generals in their history, Alaric, who had served as a general under Rome in the past, was determined to secure better living conditions for his people, whom Rome had relegated to the status of a subordinate barbarian people. For years, Alaric tried to negotiate with the Roman authorities, demanding land for his people and formal status within the empire. However, he was constantly ignored or mistreated by Roman leaders. Alaric, increasingly frustrated by the lack of answers, decided it was time to take drastic measures. In 408, he began his march towards Rome, determined to take the city if his demands were not granted. The Western Roman Empire at the time was ruled by the young Emperor Honorius, whose rule was considered weak and disconnected from reality. Honorius resided in the city of Ravenna, north of Rome, a city more defensible than Rome itself. Meanwhile, Rome, while still majestic and with a large population, was poorly defended and no longer had the imperial capital status it had had for centuries. In 408, Alaric and his army of Visigoths laid siege to Rome for the first time. The siege was a severe blow to the Romans, who were faced with famine and despair. However, after tense negotiations, Alaric agreed to lift the siege in exchange for a sizable ransom in gold, silver, and other goods. Although this temporarily relieved Rome, Alaric had not given up on his main goal, to secure a permanent settlement for his people within the empire. Over the next 2 years, Alaric continued to lobby the Roman authorities, but was repeatedly thwarted in his attempts to reach an agreement with Emperor Honorius. Finally, in 410, after several failed attempts at negotiation and growing frustration among his men, Alaric decided that the only option was to take Rome by force. On August 24, 410, the Visigoths managed to enter the city of Rome, apparently aided by traitors within the walls. This event marked the first sacking of the city in more than 800 years, since the Gauls had sacked it in the 4th century BC. For 3 days, the Visigoths roamed the city, looting everything they could find. Although the looting was brutal, it was not as destructive as some later accounts made it seem. Alaric, who still had respect for Roman traditions, ordered his men to respect Christian churches, including St. Peter's Basilica, which mitigated some of the destruction. For the Romans, however, the sack was a devastating moral blow. Rome, which had been considered the invincible city, the cradle of Western civilization, had fallen to what many still saw as a barbarian army. Although the sack did not completely destroy the city, it left a deep wound in the Roman psyche and symbolically marked the beginning of the end for the Western Roman Empire. The impact of the sack of Rome was immediate and long-lasting. Throughout the Roman world, the assault was seen as a sign that the empire was no longer capable of protecting itself. For many contemporaries, this was the moment when the ancient order of the Roman world began to crumble irreversibly. Authors such as St. Augustine wrote about the event, trying to console the Roman Christians in his work The City of God, arguing that the fall of earthly Rome did not mean the fall of the kingdom of God. The sack of Rome also had implications in the Christian world. Alaric and his Visigoths were Arians, a branch of Christianity that differed from Catholic Orthodoxy, and the fact that Rome, which had been the heart of the Christian world, was taken over by Christian heretics was seen as a dark omen. Although the Visigoths respected the churches and tried to limit the destruction of the holy sites, the impact of this assault reverberated throughout the Christian world. After the sack, Alaric and his Visigoths left Rome and marched into southern Italy, intending to cross into North Africa, which at the time was one of the richest provinces in the empire. However, before they could carry out their plan, Alaric died suddenly in late 410. According to legend, he was buried along with his treasure under the Bicento River, and his tomb has never been found. After his death, the Visigoths, now led by Alaric's successor Ataulf, abandoned their plans to cross into Africa and instead marched north, eventually settling in Gaul and Hispania, where they would establish one of the Germanic kingdoms that would emerge after the fall of Rome. Although the Western Roman Empire continued to exist for several more decades after the sack of Rome, it would never regain its former glory. The invasion and sacking by the Visigoths marked a turning point in history, showing the growing fragility of the empire and the emerging power of the Germanic peoples. The sack of Rome in 410 was a milestone in the process of the disintegration of the empire and the eventual fall of Rome in 476, when the last Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed by the Germanic chief Odoacer. In short, the sack of Rome by the Visigoths in 410 was a symbolic event that marked the progressive demise of the Western Roman Empire and the emergence of a new era of barbarian kingdoms that would dominate Europe for centuries to come. Although Rome would physically recover from the sack, it would never be the same again. Political power would move further and further east to Constantinople, and Rome's prestige would be reduced to its role as the center of Christendom. Thank you for joining us in this episode about the sack of Rome by the Visigoths. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell for more episodes of Untold Story. See you in the next one.